Hello and welcome the Shine Seminars audience on YouTube today, which is the 19th of July, Wednesday, 2023, middle of the apocalypse. I am very, very honoured and privileged to have the amazing Daniel Thomson Mills with us today. How are you, Daniel?
I'm incredible. Yes, great to be with you, Eli.
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. So I haven't seen you recently, have I? Not for a while.
No, we haven't seen each other in person since December, have we?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we've spoken many times and on the phone and so on.
Yeah. So, what projects? Well, dare I ask, what projects have you got on the boil at the moment?
Well, since I spoke at the last Shine Seminars, which was in December, I've got together with Justin Walker, who I imagine some of your listeners will know. He's part of the Holistic Alliance for Real Ecology, and I've created a book, a new book called "The Truth of How Money is Created in the Financial System: How a Small Number of People Siphon off the World's Wealth, and What We Can Do About This." And like all my books, it's solutions based, talks about the problems, talks about what the agendas are going on, but ultimately is all about empowerment and about solutions. And it's really exciting to have a collaboration this time, because Justin has done an extensive research into the money system. And in fact, his uncle was a director of the Bank of England, and he himself was invited to join the club. Really, he was invited to join the Club of Rome, and take part in the New World Order agenda, but went very fortunately on a different route. So he's got, very first-hand experience of those sorts of circles, if you like. He's particularly knowledgeable about the Bradbury Pound, which is a period in history it's been airbrushed out, and it happened in 1914. Should I just tell you the story in brief?
Do yeah.
Yeah, so the private bankers who'd been operating their financial cartel in Britain since 1694, since the creation of the Bank of England, they were bringing about the First World War. They wanted the First World War for various different reasons. Usual thing: make lots of money, traumatize the people, create geopolitical, to achieve geopolitical ends and so on. Lots of different reasons. Anyway, so they want the First World War to happen. We're on the verge of the First World War, and the British people are getting jittery. Now, at this point, the British pound, issued by the Bank of England as a promissory note, not real, money, it's debt-based money. Anyway, at that point, it was backed by gold. So it actually, in theory, you could change your paper notes for something real. Now, people start to get jittery as war was looming, and there was, lots of people were queuing up outside the banks to change their paper notes into gold. Now, the bankers were really, they don't always, their plans don't always go according to how they wish. And at this point, they sort of messed up a little bit. They didn't want this to happen. They didn't want to run on the banks. And of course, there was not enough gold in the reserves to meet the amount of paper money that was out there in circulation. So if that would have been allowed to continue, the banks would have collapsed, and it would have jeopardized the smooth transition into the First World War, what became the First World War. So the banksters went to the politicians of the day and gave them their orders as usual. And they said, right, what we'd like you to do is issue your own money, UK Treasury money, and in order to give confidence back to the currency, and lo and behold, that's what happened. So the banks were shut for about 3 days or so. And during that time, a whole load of these new pound notes, which were issued by the UK Treasury itself rather than the Bank of England, they were printed so that when the banks were opened again, people were given these new pound notes, what were called the Bradbury pound, because Sir John Bradbury was the person whose signature was on them. He was the permanent secretary to the Treasury at the time. And that's why they were nicknamed the Bradbury pound. And this money wasn't backed by gold, but it was backed by the productive value of the country. Fortunately for everybody at that time, the people accepted this new pound note and went and started to use it. Now, because this was debt-free, interest-free money, it's no surprise that this led to zero inflation and to prosperity, because all of a sudden it was creating real, not only liquidity in the economy, but real wealth to be created and to be maintained. And it was by the people, for the people, in theory, although the banksters had brought this situation about. Well, after about 3 or 4 months, this had smoothed over the transition into the war. The banksters then went back to the politicians and said, right, well, we want essentially they wanted to make a load of money from this war, and they wanted to bring back the debt-based economy, the debt-based money. So they ordered the government to stop issuing the Bradbury pounds, and over a period of time there was a transition back to debt-based money issued by the Bank of England. Now, these Bradbury pounds there was some of them still in circulation as late as 1926, but gradually they were sort of phased out. But what we have from that period is real, a real example of what sovereign money, UK government issued money, brings about. And this had happened also in the United States under Lincoln. At that time, during the Civil War, he'd issued the greenback dollar, which again was issued by the government rather than the central bank, and probably, almost certainly, was the main factor in why he got assassinated ultimately. Yeah, and now, of course, this period is very inconvenient for the banksters. They don't want people to know about it, so it's been airbrushed out of history. But it's the whole story is laid out in detail in the book that Justin and I have written, which is very interesting. So it's one of the many solutions that are possible going forward with the money system. Clearly, if we're going to adopt a sovereign money solution, which would be a countrywide or a region-wide solution, the advantage to that is that it would be a currency, a sort of means of exchange that everybody's very familiar with, pound notes, pound coins, and the equivalent in your bank account. So it would be very easy for people to understand. But of course, it would rely on having some sort of governmental authority that was actually working for the people and not against them. So that's the big stumbling block with it. Anyway, it's an interesting possibility. And then the book also lays out all the decentralized solutions that are possible, that I'm aware of anyway, such as decentralized cryptocurrencies, precious metals, local exchange trading schemes, and so on. And some of these things have been successfully done in various locations at various times. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners will be certainly into cryptocurrencies and precious metals, for example. But also, I'm very, very passionate about the idea of the gift economy, or ultimately a sort of moneyless society, or at least in part, where we're going back to really basing our way of exchanging, if you like, or creating an economy which is more through gift than through some sort of monetary exchange. We can talk about that if you're interested.
Yeah, well, it's a really poignant subject, because we kind of know that the Bank of England is, slowly, just gently dripping out information about the central bank digital currencies, and I'd like to know what your take on how they might roll that out, because I've got my ideas. But I just wanted to take you back to the Let's project, if you remember Let's.
Yes.
So that has been going for a long time, hasn't it? 30 odd years. Is that the kind of gift energetic exchange system that you'd like to see in the future?
Well, it's well, the Let's scheme is a scheme where you've got it's a point-based system, isn't it? So you might do something for somebody, like you might sort out their electrics or give them a massage or whatever, and in exchange you're given tokens from that person, and then you can use the tokens to get goods or services from other people. So it's got equivalence to money, really. No, the gift economy is where there's no tokens as such. Really, what the key elements of the gift economy are generosity and gratitude. And really what it's based on is a philosophy that when you have an abundance, it's fantastic to share that abundance. It's about sharing. It's about creating relationships. And then, of course, that generates gratitude, and it generates goodwill, and it builds community, it builds relationships. So that if you fall on hard times, that's your insurance policy, because you built up all this goodwill and you're connected with all these people in your local community through strong bonds of family and friendships and intermutuality. Then, if your house gets blown down in the winds, people will rally round to rebuild your house, whatever it might be. I love the work of Charles Eisenstein on this topic. I'm very inspired by his work. He's written a book called Sacred Economics, if you want to delve into it in greater detail, but it's covered to a certain extent in my book. Yes.
So what we're really saying is that we need to move to a service to others attitude to life. And so when everybody's in service to each other, then there is no taking as such. There's only giving.
Yes, to be honest, Eli, I mean, firstly, to get to a gift economy situation, I think there has to be stepping stones along the way. But also, I wouldn't necessarily say that a gift economy would be an exclusive way to be operating, if you like. I think it works well in a local community where it's face-to-face relationships and close, geographical stroke, close relationships all round. So if you wanted to trade with somebody, if you wanted goods or services from around the world, then maybe cryptocurrencies would be the way to go. So I see gift economy being part of a spectrum of different things that would be available for us to operate in the new world, in the new earth, or whatever we like to call it, the new paradigm. But we'll just have to see how it all pans out. The main thing is, as far as I'm concerned, is shifting out of this slave-based system, breaking the shackles of that, finding our power, and moving forward collectively in a good way, based on really raising of consciousness. And and part of that would be coming much more into a place of, rather than what can I get out of the world, what can I give to the world?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, a very heart-based way of being, really.
Yeah, it definitely is a complete shift in consciousness to be able to act like that. There has in Bristol, South Bristol, Weston-super-Mare, where I am, there has been a lot more bartering, sweat equity. Some people have paid each other in silver, and there has been swapping of things. And like you just said, I think it might well be a case of having a basket of things with which to energetically swap trades, resources, skills, etc. What's your thought on because obviously there was the Bristol pound and the Totnes pound and the local currencies that have kind of gone to the wall. But what's your have you got any thoughts on why they didn't work? Have you?
No, I'm not so familiar with the sort of story there of why they petered out.
Mm.
Um,
I was going to say because in Bristol, it was a thing for a while, and I think it was because people didn't take it seriously, and also it was only a local thing. But we are moving to a more local economy. I think it's a really
yes, I
fun.
mean,
Yeah.
I think one of the flaws of it was that it was exchangeable for pounds. Now, I guess
Yeah.
the Bank of England pounds, because I guess that meant people were reassured that if they really wanted to change it back into the national sort of currency, they could do that. But it didn't make it. It was still tied into the old system as a result.
Yeah. What's your what? I do a talk on silver. I don't know whether you know that.
Oh,
Yeah. I do a talk on silver because silver has historically been money.
yes.
And that's to do with the fungible equivalents. Copper is too heavy, and gold is too expensive to put it in your pocket. So silver is naturally the metal of choice. But what's your thought on silver? Because I know there was a big rush of interest within the kind of the truther community in 2020, 2021, and everybody was going out and buying silver. What's your thoughts on using precious metals, or even maybe producing our own coins? What do you feel about that?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I to be my situation is I don't understand cryptocurrencies, and really I'm not a techie person, so I'm not drawn to that. Now, I've got lots of friends who are really into cryptocurrencies. Good on them. It makes sense to them. They get together and talk a lot about it, and so on, and feel that it's a useful way of going about things for themselves. I much prefer real things. So precious metals make sense to me. I can understand them. And they're real things. I can hold them in my hand. I don't have to have them in a government or a internet wallet or whatever you do with cryptocurrencies. And it's easy to understand as well for others, and easy to exchange. Although, as you say, gold is not so easy to exchange, because if you've got a gold coin, it might be worth £200 to £300, and which is, as you say, why silver is maybe a silver coin would be worth what, £25–30, probably, roughly.
Yeah.
So it's much more user friendly in that regard. I feel that ultimately, it's certainly at this moment in time, it's advisable to have your assets spread in a number of different things. So I would, yeah, certainly if you're into cryptocurrencies, do some of that, but not exclusively. Have some precious metals. I would certainly have some of the existing cash in your house, in case all of a sudden central bank digital currencies are brought in overnight. At least you've got some cash to still, rather than signing up to that slave system, times 3 or whatever it would be. You've got some cash where you can still trade with probably most traders for at least a time being. And of course, we do need to have a bit of money in the bank as well to pay for online purchases or whatever. But we want to getting away from that as much as possible. Yeah, so precious metals are very much part of what I value as a way forward.
Mm. Do you think this universal basic income thing is a good or a bad thing? What's your take on that? Money for nothing.
Well, um, it's all about if you sell your soul to the devil, then you get certain things back in exchange, don't you? You know, but what's the value of your soul? It has infinite value, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's another carrot, isn't it?
Well, that's right. Look, we need to be in our integrity and our sovereignty, and not hand that over for whatever golden apples that they say we can have in exchange, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There are a lot of people, younger people, who are really keen on the universal basic income and the possibilities of just having, the money come in. But I think it devalues your worth on a fundamental level, just to give somebody money with no. I mean, I always find in my business, when we give things away sometimes, and this is an interesting point, the person who receives it, like we say, we've got some furniture, they might not put a value on that piece of furniture because we've given it to them. And if we sell it to them, they actually respect the piece of furniture more, which is an interesting concept. There's an energy exchange there. Energy has to go both ways for it to have some sort of substance.
Yes, I understand that. Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, of course, the situation we're being presented with is the classic problem, reaction, solution. So enslave everybody with debt, make sure they can't, young people, it's so bad for them at the moment. They can't afford to get their own place. Usually they're staying with their parents longer and longer. If they go to university, they get into even more ridiculous debt. They come out of university with something ridiculous like 30 to 40,000 pounds worth of debt from all the student loans. On top of the national debt burden that everybody carries and so on. Well, so everybody's, reacting against that. How am I going to be able to live? How am I going to be able to survive? Well, how am I going to be able to have shelter? Oh, the solution, the off-the-shelf solution, we can give you all of the universal basic income. All you need to do is sign on the dotted line here, hand over your soul to to these people.
What does Justin think? What's Justin's take on moving away from the fiat system?
From the fiat system, well, he's really into the sovereign money solution. He's very enthusiastic about a new Bradbury pound.
Right.
That this could be done in days. But he says, this is all with the massive proviso that we have a politicians or government situation that are working for us, not against us. Which is certainly the case now. We've only got one MP in Parliament who seems to be saying anything, that runs contrary to what the globalists wish. So there we go. Yeah.
So it needs to be a change in consciousness, really, to move forward.
Yes, it certainly does. Yes. Yeah.
So,
I think from my perspective, the main thing about the Bradbury pound is it certainly for a lot of people who aren't aware until they read the book or they come across this in some way, it shows how the Bank of England system operates and how completely different it would be if that tie was cut. And the government just did the money thing itself, essentially.
Have you looked at Dr. Richard Werner's work? Are you familiar with his kind of expose of how money is created when you walk into the bank and you sign up for a loan and you're creating the money. I don't think people have any idea that that's the case.
Well, yes. I mean, I haven't read Richard Werner. I've read John Hamer's books. Those books Behind the Curtain.
Yeah.
And various other people. Ellen Brown. Yeah. So there's a lot of people who have written about this in various forms over the years. And of course, there's the classic book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
That's it.
About the formation of the Federal Reserve in the US.
That's right. And there's the Babylon Banksters book as well, isn't there? Which is, I'm not sure who that's written by. Actually, I've got that somewhere. But yeah, it is a fascinating subject, and it's so core. I know that in the Freedom Network, when I was involved in that more heavily, we had some Zooms, and one of the things, the kind of working parties we set up was money. What about the monetary system? Because there has been a feeling that the banks are going to crash. And are they going to partially crash the system, fully crash the system, just jump from one system to another system? There's all those sort of ideas. And I think it was second on the list of priorities. The first one was food security, and the second one was the monetary system. So it's quite high up there. I think food includes health, but
Yes.
it was.
Well, this is it. My big thing, and I'm talking about it all the time, is, and I'm sure you're the same, Eli, it's creating a parallel society, getting off the mainstream systems as much as possible, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Before these central bank digital currencies are brought in whatever way that they are, before they manufacture any sort of economic collapse or whatever. We want to build resilience. It's a no-brainer, really, to build resilience as much as possible in our local community. And yeah, as I said earlier, it's all about building relationships, building community fundamentally. And let's just, it's worthwhile just experimenting, trying things out, see what works, start small. It doesn't need to be a big, massive project. You only need 3 people to start a money system and start trading between you. It doesn't need a lot of people or any complexity, and see what works, and maybe then start expanding it over time. So we need to play with these things and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I know you've lived off in communities that are not in the system as such, but there are always, in off-grid communities, there is always the need to go into town, so to speak, and buy things and use fiat currency. But generally, if we do go back to a smaller, one small town type model, there are lots of things that we actually don't need money for. If we can feed ourselves, it's fuel and food, isn't it, really, and clothing.
It's shelter, energy, means of exchange, food, yes, and health.
Yeah, and obviously the food thing can be pretty much sorted out over a period of time. Fuel is very, is one of those things you got to go to town for, and clothing is also something which we have to address. I mean, I think it is a paradigm shift in how we treat, how we go out and buy things.
Yeah, well, certainly on the energy front, I'm completely an advocate for this idea of there's free energy. I'm not sure I quite like the word free energy or the phrase, but there's infinite energy out there. And really, we've been told this lie that energy is limited, that there's only a certain amount of it, and it has to be put through wires, and it has to be accounted for and paid for, and all this stuff. Yeah, so I kind of feel that as we expand our consciousness, and come into a deeper relationship with ourselves and the universe will respond by making clear solutions that We maybe only tantalizingly have a glimpse of at the moment, or don't fully understand or have fully been able to bring into reality. I think the key thing is, as I say, just working on that shift in consciousness, and solutions will appear that we can't even possibly imagine now, I believe.
No, it's interesting. Did you see Dr. Stephen Greer's The Lost Century? Have you seen that?
No.
It's absolutely amazing. You know, Dr. Greer did the American Press Society disclosure in 2002. He's a ufologist.
Oh, yes.
And there was a huge meeting in front of the whole of America's press, CBS, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times. I think it's 2001. And there was a load of speakers who all signed affidavits to say that their testimony was true. And if they were taken to court, this was their statements. And it was to do with disclosure of extraterrestrial life, basically. But it wasn't. It was a combination of things. And Stephen brought out just a couple of months ago a documentary called The Lost Century, and I highly recommend you watch it, because what he's done is he's done a new version of that with different people taking affidavits, talking about technologies. And in this documentary, he actually goes through every single case of people who've made, you know, perpetual motion machines, in inverted commas, or 0-point energy machines, and either been taken out by the corporates, taken out themselves, or had their ideas stolen, etc. Or, as he calls it, they were just crazy inventor syndrome people who were just like, it's mine, and then they end up taking their invention to the grave. But the whole idea that you've got a machine, there is one machine in that documentary. It's an amazing documentary because it blows everything out of the water, and it blows the whole electrification of the planet out of the water. And what he's fundamentally saying is that there are two types of unidentified flying object. There are those which were made off-world, that's what he's saying, and then there are those which are made by humans on this planet. Yeah, so they are also unidentified flying objects. And he goes through all these different scenarios, and he basically says, we have, for the last 70 years, we've had the capability of having these machines that pull energy out of the ether. And we don't need any of these fuels. We don't need any oil. We don't need gas. We don't need coal. We don't need electricity. We can just pull it out of 0-point field. It is an absolute game changer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
It's on I think it's on Vimeo or Amazon. You have to buy it.
Okay.
But one of the things that he says, which is just fascinating, is he literally goes through all the inventions, because over the last 20 years, he's been involved in a lot of these projects because people have come to him and said, what shall I do? And he's given them advice, and he just says, open source everywhere all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just give it away.
Yes.
And no one's been doing that. No one did it. And there's this one guy who invented this little box about this big, and he puts 0.3 of a milliwatt in, and it gets 5 kilowatts out. Now, that is the fundamental sticking. If you talk to anybody who's an engineer or a physicist, etc., they'll just go, you're nuts, mate.
Yes.
But it has been done, and it is a thing.
Sure.
So
I've watched the Thrive documentaries, which I imagine you've watched.
Yeah.
Where there's certainly exciting projects that are revealed there.
Yeah. There's a YouTube channel that's just a guy has just made a motorbike that runs on water. You see, I was always under the impression that this time round there'd be so many people, it'd be like whack-a-mole with the free energy. And there'd be so many people who would be, because we're all going into this unity consciousness.
Yes.
And all these ideas are coming up at the same time. Yes. That they wouldn't be able to stop them this time. And I'm still a great believer that, especially when you see this motorbike, you know, it's there and it runs on water. And
Stanley Myers did it, didn't he?
That's right. That's right. So,
but it was a while ago.
I've got great hopes for there to be, you know, one of the new paradigm shifts is that we we can't use the solar economy or the wind economy, because it's just
No.
polluting. It's so
Yeah,
polluting.
very damaging. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I highly recommend that, and it is a game changer because he just comes out and he just goes through all the different historical
right.
projects.
Oh, I'll be fascinated by that. I must
Yeah.
must check it out, definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing times we're living in, and just it's so interesting, because I kind of was into hidden history years ago, and just to be able to openly talk about these things now amongst the community is a beautiful thing, because before I didn't have anybody to talk to this stuff about. It's like my friend Nola, I'll just tell you, my friend Nola, who is now 92, I spent, from 2003, 2004, she was the only one in my life that I could actually talk to about these things, up until 2020.
I have to say, let's talk about the event that you've organised, Eli, because I'm absolutely so excited about it. It's going to be epic, isn't it?
Well, Daniel, I'm already organising the next one, because I feel that the people who are coming are truly, truly the bow of the ship. I'm so grateful for everybody to come, and it is about, ultimately it's about going back to nature, and it's about working with, it should be called working with, that phrase, just working with and not against, and just everybody's coming together. And this event is a coming together. It was very much it just happened. I haven't really done anything, Daniel. It's just happened, and people.
Well, I think you're being very humble there. You've done a lot, Eli.
Well, it's not. It's not.
You're oiling the wheels. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel that the people who've kind of been attracted to what I'm doing, they're doing the same thing in their own field, and I am just a conduit for it. And it is amazing to have plant consciousness people, next to people like yourself, next to people who are doing native intelligence, next to people who are doing chanting and sacred singing, and it's, and earth energies is a really big thing, and going back to earth.
Yes, Rory Duff's going to be there. I'm so excited to be meeting him. I love his work. Value what he's doing.
Yeah, it's just a great coming together, and it's it sounds crazy, but it's as much for the speakers to talk to each other as it is for the attendees.
Oh, it's going to be networking for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, I think that even if we all just have a great, huge conversation together, and I think that one of the things that I've learned over the last few weeks is we just need to turn up, Daniel. In our kind of divinity and our sovereignty, when we turn up and we actually show ourselves and just experience ourselves in our wholeness, we're so powerful. And just to be around each other is a really incredible thing. And it's like I say, I'm gonna do the next one and hopefully do something just equally as good. And I know this one's not even started. In fact, I've got to go onto site over the next few days just to actually find out. I don't know the configuration of the site yet, but we've got a beautiful chef coming, Faith, who's doing all organic, all vegan food. She's a conscious cook. That's just going to be absolutely incredible. Buster Nolan's coming, who's going to talk about, who I'd love you to meet. He does trees, and he does I don't know whether you know Buster, but he's not really well known, but over the years he's come in and out of the kind of consciousness. I first saw a YouTube video where he was talking about when the rain comes out of the clouds, it spins in a vortex, and when it hits the ground, it charges the ground. And I was just like, okay, well, yeah, let's let's talk about that, Buster. And he's a real proponent of, like, copper tools.
Yes,
that he's very into that.
So, well, I'm totally into Victor Schauberger's stuff. Yeah. So that's all on those lines, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is. Yeah. So I'm very, very grateful for the people coming along, and it's going to be great. And I know that people are really looking forward to being there. Our time is up, Daniel, I'm afraid.
Can I just can I just
Go
plug
for it.
my website? So I've been
Yeah.
talking. I've got 3 books.
Yeah, talk us briefly about the books. We've got a couple of minutes, but
So this is the one I've been mentioning, the latest one, which
Yeah.
is the book I've written in collaboration with Justin Walker
yeah,
on the solutions to the money system, essentially.
yeah,
I've got my first book, which is the topic I'm going to be speaking about on the Saturday at the event in the
Yeah.
Forest of Dean. That's called "The Myth That Viruses Cause Disease and the Nature of Illness: A Treatise on Bioterrain Medicine."
yeah,
So again, that's getting away from the false germ theory of disease, back to an understanding which has been an ancient knowledge, really, of how the body works. It's all based on energy and balance, creating balance and wholeness. Anyway, that's a big topic.
yeah. Great, fantastic work.
Last but not least, I've got my book, Daniel's Guide to the Case Against Man-Made Climate Change: How the Environmental Movement is Being Manipulated for Nefarious Ends, and the urgent need to build resilience for whatever comes. So I'm hoping, as well as the main talk I've got lined up, I'm hoping to do another talk on one of the other topics, probably organized a bit impromptu style on the weekend. And I'll be available to sell the books and talk about things and yeah, have a chat. If anyone wants to go and have a look at my website, you can go to Dandelion Speaks. So that's dandelion as in the plant, dandelionspeaks.msvr.uk, dandelionspeaks.msvr.uk, and you'll see detail about the books. You'll be able to find recordings of some of my presentations on there, some of my other podcasts and interviews. Yeah, so check it out. And I'm really excited to meet, hopefully, a lot of you who are listening tonight to today at the event in the Forest of Dean.
Brilliant. Thanks, Daniel. I'm going to put all your details in the link below. And
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for taking time out today. And do come and find me when you come to site.
Oh, of course I will. I'll be giving you a big hug, Eli.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear a big sunflower or something, or like a huge yellow T-shirt or something, just to make myself stand out. Because some people are like, where can we find you, Ida? And I said, you'll actually have to hunt me down, I think. So, but there we go. I'm really looking forward to it, Daniel. Thank you so much for your service.
See you soon. See you in a few weeks.
Cheers. Thanks, Daniel.
Bye.
Bye.